On September 11th, 2001, I was in my first year of university in a state called Indiana.
I was a senior in high school in Oskaloosa, Iowa, which is in the middle of the country there in the United States.
I was at our training center in Northern Virginia. It's called the Foreign Service Institute.
As a military family, we were living at Marine Corps Base Kaneohe Bay on the island of Oahu. My husband is a Marine helicopter pilot.
I was in the deserts of Western Australia. I was working at a remote military installation.
Started the day off like any other day. Typical great fall, Midwestern, sunny, bright sky day.
I was in Russian training in preparation for my next assignment in the Ukraine.
My family listened to the radio as part of their morning routine getting ready. And I happened to catch, at the end of an hour, I caught the news story that, hey, an airplane had hit a building in New York City.
One of the people in the class was from New York and had gotten a message on his cell phone that a plane had hit the World Trade Center in New York.
Like it was a small propeller plane that had just run into a building somewhere, not necessarily in Manhattan, not necessarily, the World Trade Center. It was just a very generic story at the end of a news hour. And with that information, I headed out the door, went to school.
That morning, I had gone to an early class and came back to my dorm room, and it was weirdly quiet on the hallway.
So when we woke up and I turned on the news, I saw that the first plane had crashed into one of the Twin Towers.
A number of people in the class started getting messages that a plane had hit the other tower of the World Trade Center, and we all knew immediately that something was up, and people started talking.
I was recently married. My wife was back in Fremantle, and I remember getting the call in the middle of the night.
A bunch of my friends were in another room watching the television, and so that was when I first saw that something was going on. I think both towers in New York had been hit by the planes, but were still standing. So there was still a lot of confusion about what was going on.
As it is when it's 12 or 1 o'clock at night, you tend not to necessarily want to respond to a phone call. So I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I've got to go back to sleep. But she insisted that I turn it on, and I did, and I was shocked.
The moment we saw it, we understood what was happening, that this was planned, was not a mistake. Something really dramatic and important was happening to our country.
We weren't conditioned to immediately think that something like that would be an act of terror. That's something that I think 9/11 really changed in our national psyche.
In many ways, I think I'm here right now, serving my country because of 9/11. If 9/11 hadn't happened, I don't see myself being in the diplomatic corps in Canberra, Australia.
If you go to the memorial and look at the names and all of that, you will see a diversity of names from perhaps different origins.
I did go over for work, but I was with my brother, and I had my 10-year-old daughter with me at the time.
9/11 was not just an event that impacted the United States. Many other countries had their nationals in those buildings and lost people on that day as well.
After we gave her some background, and then she read, some of the plaques there and the information available, she was in tears, which, for someone who was only born in 2002, I look at her and think, wow, this is having such an impact on her, because she realised the loss of life and where it was too.
You hear so much about what happened in New York, New Yorkers who went through this, and I think people forget. A couple of hundred people were killed at the Pentagon, another couple hundred in the plane, and then there was the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania, another couple hundred victims. And I think about that very often. That plane was on a trajectory towards Washington, D.C. There was a lot of speculation as to where it was headed, but probably the Capitol or the White House. Had it reached its destination, we'd be telling a very different story today.